At first, everything seemed perfectly ordinary. Trump carried his signature grin, suiting the confidence he had long cultivated, while Ivanka maintained her composed, polished demeanor. But across from them, Jasmine Crockett sat quietly, watchful, her calm presence masking the storm of revelations. She was poised to unleash truths that would shake the carefully curated world of Trump and Ivanka. The studio lights bathed the set in a warm, golden glow. Cameras swiveled and rolled, capturing every angle, every nuance. Applause swelled as Donald Trump strode in, unmistakable in his presence. He didn't merely enter the studio, he owned it. Each step radiated authority. His hand lifted in a practiced wave, his grin spreading wider, absorbing the crowd's reaction like it was owed to him. Every gesture was deliberate. Every glance a proclamation that the stage belonged to him. Trump adjusted his suit jacket with an almost ritualistic flourish, lifting his chin to display the same unshakable self-assurance that had defined his career. Beside him, Ivanka moved with measured grace, her composure flawless. Her smile, perfectly timed and practiced, gave the impression of serenity, but beneath the surface, subtle tension lingered. Once they were seated, the host began, his voice warm, almost soothing, guiding the conversation into familiar territory. Mr. Trump, millions are watching tonight. You faced countless challenges. What drives you forward? What gives you strength? Trump leaned into the microphone, scanning the audience, his tone measured and firm. My family, he said. They've always been my anchor. Ivanka, Barron, all of them loyal, incredible. The kind of loyalty anyone could only hope for. Applause erupted. Trump's smile broadened, his hand tapping the desk as if to seal his words as irrefutable truth. Ivanka's smile never faltered, a calm, proud daughter's mask. Yet there was a fleeting flicker in her eyes, a subtle hesitation. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett sat opposite them, silent and composed, her gaze unwavering and sharp, analytical. She neither clapped nor nodded, waiting patiently for her moment. Trump, ensconced in his comfort zone, continued unabated. When you lead, you must be strong. People look to your family to see the man behind the title. My family, my loyalty, my values, those define who I am. The audience applauded once more. Trump gave his signature wave, signaling triumph. But the show was far from over. Jasmine's calm silence contrasted sharply with the clapping crowd. She radiated certainty. She knew a truth no one else in the studio dared confront. The host glanced toward Jasmine, curiosity in his eyes, but continued guiding the conversation around Trump. Television at its finest. The charismatic man on stage. The supportive daughter, an engaged audience. Yet beneath the polished veneer, subtle cracks began to appear. Ivanka avoided glancing at her father when he mentioned Barron, her hands gripping the edge of her chair slightly tighter. All the while, Jasmine's steady gaze communicated a silent warning. I know the truth. Slowly, the energy in the room shifted. The applause faded, replaced by a creeping tension that the audience couldn't name but could feel. Something monumental was about to unfold. Trump remained oblivious, lost in his own narrative. Unaware of Jasmine's scrutiny, Ivanka's subtle unease, or the transformation of the room's energy from excitement to anticipation, he continued. America needs strong families, and nobody has a stronger family than mine. In that instant, Jasmine leaned forward, just enough to signal readiness. It was a small, deliberate movement, unnoticed by the audience, but charged with intent. Trump didn't sense it. Ivanka likely did, explaining her stillness. But Jasmine knew exactly what was coming, and what she was about to say would send shockwaves through the studio. As the last echoes of applause faded, Jasmine finally leaned forward. Her hands rested calmly on the table, her eyes fixed firmly on Trump. The host was poised to transition to another topic when Jasmine's voice cut crisply through the studio. "Mr. Trump," she began. "Measured, confident. You speak often of strength, of honesty, of family. But the story you present isn't as transparent as it seems." Silence engulfed the room. No one anticipated this, certainly not on live television. Trump blinked, momentarily taken aback, before regaining composure. "My family is the strongest," he replied sharply. "Everyone knows that. Don't spread falsehoods." Jasmine didn't flinch. Calmly, she continued, "That's precisely my point. You present an perfect father, a loyal family, a flawless legacy. But what if that image is a facade? What if something significant has been hidden from public view? Something about your own family?" Uneasy murmurs rippled through the audience. Ivanka's smile remained, but her eyes flickered toward her father, then returned to Jasmine. Trump dismissed her with a short, sharp laugh. Fake, completely fabricated. Jasmine remained steady. "I'm not fabricating anything," she said. "And I wouldn't speak unless I had proof." The public deserves honesty, Mr. Trump. They deserve to know when a leader hides something fundamental, especially when it concerns the very image he claims as his strength. The host shifted uncomfortably, caught between controlling the broadcast and allowing the confrontation to unfold. Cameras zoomed in on Trump's face. His jaw tightened, composure wavering. Then Jasmine asked the question that froze the room. "Why don't you tell them who Barron's real mother is?" The silence that followed was suffocating. The audience gasped, whispering in disbelief. Trump slammed his hand on the desk, voice rising. "How dare you? That's a disgusting lie. Shameful." The louder he raged, the calmer Jasmine remained. She didn't yell, didn't argue, she simply observed. "It's not a lie," she said quietly. "It's fact. And I have the documents to prove it." The audience reacted instantly, gasps, murmurs, wide eyes. The host leaned forward, uncertain. Ivanka sat rigid, knuckles white, gripping her chair so tightly it was almost painful. Trump tried to laugh, but it sounded forced. "She's crazy. Nobody believes that." Yet the energy in the room had shifted irrevocably. The applause was gone. All eyes were on Jasmine. Her power lay not in volume or theatrics, but in unshakable calm. "The truth isn't always pleasant, Mr. Trump," she continued, voice steady. "But when it's hidden, when power is built on illusion, people deserve to know. And tonight, they will." Cameras captured every moment. Trump's flushed anger, Ivanka's frozen expression, Jasmine's composed certainty. The stage had transformed from a talk show set into a courtroom of accountability. Jasmine had just presented her first piece of evidence. Tension hung thick in the air. Everyone in the studio and millions watching knew something monumental was unfolding. Trump leaned forward, hands slamming the desk, face red with fury. "This is outrageous. You think you can attack my family on live television? You're a disgrace, Jasmine. A complete disgrace." His voice echoed, but the audience no longer cheered. They simply watched, leaning in. Whispering, Jasmine remained composed, her quiet presence cutting through the chaos. Tilting her head slightly, she said, "The louder you shout, the clearer it becomes that you don't want this truth exposed." The audience reacted with hushed gasps. Trump scanned the crowd, searching for allies who weren't there. Ivan spoke, voice trembling slightly. "This is nonsense. My father has always been honest about our family. How dare you make such an accusation? You're only trying to humiliate us." Jasmine's response was precise, calm. "No, Ivanka. This isn't about humiliation. It's about accountability. When leaders hide something significant, people have a right to know. This isn't about me, it's about the truth." Trump interjected, pointing sharply at her. "You're lying, trying to destroy my family. Fake papers, smear campaigns, it won't work. No one believes you. But the room remained silent. The audience wasn't defending Trump. They were waiting, anticipating. Ivanka tried again, her tone sharper, composure slipping. You don't understand the damage you're causing. Families deserve privacy. Children deserve protection. Dragging Barron into this is shameful. For the first time, Jasmine softened slightly. She nodded, acknowledging Ivanka's concern before replying, "You're right. Children deserve protection." But this isn't about Barron. It's about the lies surrounding him. When a child's image is used to protect a political figure, the truth becomes essential. The audience murmured softly, some clapping not for drama, but for Jasmine's composed conviction. Trump struck the desk again, voice trembling with frustration. You think people care about this? They don't. They care about strength, about leadership. Trump's voice cut sharply through fear. Nobody cares about your fake drama. Jasmine leaned back in her chair, her composure almost unnerving in contrast to his anger. Meeting his eyes directly, she replied evenly, "If nobody cares, then why are you so afraid?" The room filled with gasps. Even the host couldn't hide his surprise. Trump froze momentarily, unable to respond. His mouth opened, then closed. His usual quick replies gone. Ivanka, visibly placed a trembling hand on her father's arm, trying to steady him. She sensed what was coming. The weight of something she couldn't stop, turning slightly toward the audience. Jasmine spoke calmly, her voice clear and steady. The truth is uncomfortable. It shakes those in power. But the truth is also simple. And tonight, everyone watching deserves to hear it. The studio grew still. The audience leaned in. The camera zoomed closer. Trump gripped the edge of the desk, his knuckles white. Ivanka sat frozen, her gaze fixed on Jasmine, silently hoping she would stop, but it was too late. Jasmine had control of the room, the moment, and the narrative. Silence filled the air, not the quiet of boredom, but of suspense. Every person in the room waited. Then, with measured movements, Jasmine reached under the desk. When her hand emerged, it held a thick manila folder. She placed it gently before her. The gesture deliberate, weighted with meaning. The host's eyes widened. He leaned forward and whispered, "Are those documents?" Jasmine didn't respond directly. Keeping her focus on Trump and Ivanka, she said clearly, "You accuse me of lying, of creating stories, but I don't speak without proof. And right here in my hands is evidence." Trump immediately interp, his voice booming. "Fake. It's all fake. Don't believe a word, shissies. Another witch hunt. Anthropathetic smear job." But his shoutingly made Jasmine's calmness more striking. Slowly, she opened the folder. The soft sound of paper brushing together echoing across the room. The audience leaned forward, straining to see. Jasmine lifted a stack of papers and held them up for the cameras. "These aren't rumors or opinions. These are official records, legal documents, hospital reports, DNA tests, all leading to one truth that's been hidden for years." Trump slammed the desk again, his voice shaking. "Lies. Those are fake. Anyone can forge papers these days. Signatures, DNA, whatever you want. Total garbage." But Jasmine didn't waver. She turned to face cameras, her tone steady yet firm. "These documents are verified, reviewed, signed, and notarized. This isn't speculation. This is fact. And the fact is," she paused for just a moment before continuing, "Ivanka Trump is Barron's biological mother." The studio erupted. Gasps filled the air, drowning out the host's attempts to restore control. Some audience members covered their mouths. Others whispered frantically, stunned by what they had just heard. Trump stood abruptly, pointing a finger at Jasmine, his face flushed with anger. "How dare you? This is an attack on my family, on my children. You should be ashamed of yourself. Cut her mic. Shoot it off, right now." But the microphone stayed on. The cameras kept rolling. Ivanka, pale and motionless, sat frozen in her chair. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Her eyes flickered between the folder and Jasmine, as if she wanted to deny what she had heard. Yet something stopped her. The weight of the document spoke louder than words. The host tried to interject. "Ms. Crockett, this is an extraordinary claim." But Jasmine calmly interrupted, her voice even and composed. "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and tonight I've brought it. These documents outline the medical verification, and the legal signatures. Mr. Trump's version of his family story isn't what he says it is. The public deserves to know." The audience reacted instantly. A mix of gasps and hesitant applause. It wasn't celebration. It was shock at Jasmine's boldness to confront Trump so directly. Trump, shaking with anger, shouted, "This is illegal. You'll pay for this. Everyone spreading these lies will regret it." But Jasmine didn't even look at him. She turned her attention to the cameras, her tone steady. "This isn't about destroying anyone. It's about truth. Leaders cannot demand trust while hiding their deepest secrets. If accountability means anything, then knowledge, no matter how personal, should be protected." The studio descended into chaos. Trump's voice thundered. Ivanka sat in insolence. The host struggled to regain control, and the audience buzzed like a storm. Yet Jasmine remained calm, the poppers still in her hands, her words changing heavy in the air. The truth was no longer a rumor. It was live on television, visible to the entire world, and impossible to take back. The scene had shifted. The night no longer belonged to the host or Trump. It belonged to Jasmine Crockett. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The folder in her hand carried more authority than any argument in the room. Everyone, both in the studio and watching from home, could feel it. Through it of truth settling in. Then Jasmine leaned toward the microphone. Her tone was measured calm, but each word carried unmistakable conviction. This is not about humiliating a familiar, stirring personal drama. This is about accountability. When leaders leave out their most private truths, they reveal a willingness to lie about anything. And if they can manipulate their own story, how can the public trust them with the nation's story? Her words cut through the noise. Trump slammed his fist on the desk again, but fewer people were listening. The audience's focus had shifted entirely to Jasmine. She lifted another page from the folder, tapping it lightly for emphasis. These documents reveal what was hidden, but beyond this secret lies something deeper. It's the act of concealment that matters, hiding the truth's power, controlling the narrative retakes influence, image, and authority. And the longer a lie stands, the stronger it grows. That's why exposure is necessary. The host stopped picturing to interrupt. His pale expression reified the shock of everyone in the room. There was no stopping this moment. Jasmine had taken full command. Turning again to the cameras, she addressed the millions watching. Ask yourselves, why do politicians go to such lengths to hide the truth? Why rewrite family histories, bury facts, and silence unknown who questions them? The answer is simple. Because they fear exposure. They fear losing control. They fear theplik, discovering that the image they present isn't the life they actually live. For a moment, the room fell silent. Even Trump, visibly tense and red-faced, had no words left. His anger simmered, but the weight of Jasmine's words held stronger. She continued, her tone firm yet composed. When secrets like this are hidden, it's not only a matter of personal privacy. These situations can influence legal issues, inheritance, custody, taxation, even political decisions. They can be used as leverage behind closed doors. And each time a truth is buried, public trust reads further. That's why exposure matters, not for gossip or headlines, but for accountability. This time, the audience reacted differently. There were no gasps, only quiet murmurs and nods. A few even began, clapping softly, acknowledging theft, point being made. Jasmine placed the documents back into the folder and rested her hands on top of it. "I understand the risks," she said calmly, speaking out against powerful people and Linebites' threats. "Legal challenges and attempt to damage your reputation. But truth outweighs fear. If we expect a Nazi from those in power, we can tell them to conceal what defines their integrity." Everything had appeared normal at first. Trump was smiling. Ivanka remained poised, but across from them. Jasmine Crockett sat silently, prepared to reveal something that would alter the tone of the entire show. Especially for Trump and Ivanka. The bright studio lights illuminated the stage with a golden hue. Cameras rolled, the audience applauded, and Donald Trump entered. His presence filled the room immediately. He didn't just walk in. He took command, greeting the crowd with his signature wave and confident smile. He absorbed the applause like Sumi and Esserton. The evening belonged to him. The camera followed every movement. The adjustment of his suit, the lift of Hishin, the polished gestures of a practiced public figure. Beside him, Ivanka entered gracefully, composed as ever. Her expression calm and professional. She took her seat, crossing her legs neatly. Her demeanor controlled and precise. The host began warmly, setting a friendly tone. "Mr. Trump, millions are watching tonight. You've faced many challenges over the years. What keeps you going? What's your source of strength?" It was the perfect opening for Trump. He leaned toward the microphone, his gaze sweeping across the audience. His voice was steady and assured. "My family," he said. "They've always been my strength. Ivanka, Baron, all of them. Loyal, amazing, the best anyone could ask for." Applause filled the room again. Trump smiled broadly, tapping the desk with satisfaction as if to affirm his statement. Ivanka's expression remained unchanged. She glanced at him, then at the audience, her face unreadable to viewers. She appeared as a proud daughter beside her father. But beneath bright lights, her stillness carried a different weight. Across the stage, Jasmine Crockett sat composed, attentive. She didn't join in the applause. Her gaze remained steady on Trump, waiting patiently. Trump, enjoying the moment, leaned back with ease. "When you're a leader," he continued, "you must be strong. People look at your family to understand who we are. My family, my children, my values, that's what defines me." The audience clapped once more. And Trump offered his familiar wave, signaling confidence and closure. But in reality, the discussion had only just begun. Jasmine's quiet presence conveyed a different kind of certainty. She was not persuaded by the speech. She knew something that had yet to surface, something that would soon reshape the conversation. The host glanced toward Jasmine, but kept the spotlight on Trump. It made 4EC television. Trump's confident talk about family. The audience's approval, Ivanka's calm smile. Yet subtle cracks began to show. The way Ivanka avoided eye contact when our father mentioned Baron's name. The way her fingers tightened slightly on chair. And the way Jasmine's calm expression seemed to say, "I know that truth." Gradually, the energy in theater shifted. The applause quieted. A still anticipatory focus began to fill space. The audience didn't yet understand why. They only sensed that something significant was approaching Trump. Absorbed in his own words, DN, no ties. He continued confidently, unaware of the tension forming around him. America needs strong families, he declared. And no one has a stronger family than mine. At that moment, Jasmine leaned forward slightly, a subtle signal that she was ready. The audience didn't know what was coming made. Trump didn't either. Ivanka did, which explained her unwavering composure. Then, as the final applause faded, Jasmine Crockett leaned toward her microphone. Up until now, Jasmine had remained silent, her hands resting calmly on the table, her gaze affixed firmly on Trump. The host was about to shift to the next topic when Jasmine's voice broke the silence, steady and clear. "Mr. Trump Shabagan," her tone calm, but commanding attention. "You often speak of strength, honesty, and how your family represents your values. But the problem is, that story isn't as truthful as you make it sound." The studio fell silent. No one expected her to challenge him like that, especially not on live television. Trump blinked, momentarily thrown off, before leaning forward. "Excuse me, my family is strongest. Everyone knows that. Don't start with nonsense." Jasmine didn't flinch. Her composure remained steady. "See, that's exactly the point. You present one image to the public. The perfect father, the loyal children, the flawless family. But what if the truth is different? What if you've been hiding something significant? Something about your own family?" The audience shifted uncomfortably. A murmur spread through the crowd. Ivanka froze. Her smile stayed fixed, but her eyes moved to her father, then back to Jasmine. Trump forced a laugh, waving dismissively. "Ridiculous, fake. She's making things up. Total garbage." But Jasmine leaned forward slightly, her voice firm yet calm. "I'm not making anything up, and I wouldn't say this without proof. The public deserves honesty. Mr. Trump, they have a right to know when a leader hid something this serious, especially when it's tied to the very image they use to gain trust." The host looked uncertain, caught between moving on and letting the moment unfold. The camera zoomed in on Trump, his face tense, jaw tight, confidence about to slip. Then Jasmine asked Ketha's question that stopped the room cold. "Why don't you tell them who Baron's real mother is?" The silence that followed was heavy. The audience gasped. Some covered their mouths, while others whispered to each other. Chairs shifted as the tension grew. Trump slammed his hand on the desk. "How dare you? That's a disgusting lie. You don't know what you're talking about. Shameful. Absolutely shameful." The more he shouted, a calmer Jasmine Beckham. She didn't interrupt or raise her voice. She simply watched him, allowing his anger to echo. Then, with quiet certainty, she said, "It's not Allie. It's not rumor. It's fact, and I have documents to prove it." Gasps swept through the audience again, louder this time. The host leaned forward, unsure whether to intervene. Ivanka gripped the armrest of her chair so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She didn't speak, but her stillness said enough. Trump shook his head, forcing another laugh that sounded hollow. "She's crazy. Totally crazy. Nobo de Bell leaves this." But the energy in the room had shifted. The audience was no longer with him. No one was cheering no. All eyes were on Jasmine. She didn't need to shout. Her strength was in her calm precision, in the quiet authority of her tone. "The truth isn't always comfortable, Mr. Trump," she said evenly. "But when someone builds power in a false image, the public has the right to know. And tonight, they will." The cameras captured everything. Trump's serene face, Ivanka's frozen stare, Jasmine's unwavering poise. The studio no longer felt like a TV set. It felt like a courtroom with Jasmine laying out the first piece of her case. The tension was unbearable. Everyone could sense she was about to reveal something major. The only question was what would come next. The atmosphere in the studio had completely changed. Moments ago, it was filled with applause for Trump's confident words about family. Now, it was dense with silence and unease, so heavy it felt almost tangible. Trump leaned forward again, returning. He slammed his hands on the desk. "This is outrageous. You think you can come here and attack my family on live television? You're a disgrace, Jasmine. A disgrace." His voice echoed through the room, but the crowd stayed quiet. No applause, no cheers, just eyes fixed on the confrontation. Some leaned forward, others whispered nervously. Jasmine stayed perfectly composed. Her calm presence cut straight through Heisinger. She tilted her head slightly and said softly, "The louder you shout, the clearer it becomes that you don't want the truth to come out." The words landed hard. The audience gasped again. Trump shifted uncomfortably, glancing around as if the crowd had turned against him. Finally, Ivanka spoke, her voice trembling slightly despite her usual composure. "This is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. My father has always been honest about our family. How dare you even suggest something so vile?" She leaned closer, anger flashing in her eyes. "You're only saying this to humiliate us? You don't care about truth. You just want attention." Jasmine didn't react. Her voice stayed low, deliberate, and steady. "No, Ivanka, this isn't about humiliation. It's about accountability. When a leader hides something, especially something that shapes how the public sees them, the truth must come out."